Good morning, YouTube. JS here in Alaska, and I've decided to do something a little different than I normally do. My little 1 to 2 minute long shooting videos, they're fine and dandy, but I figured I'd never actually talk about my rifles. Now, I don't have my other guns here, but I do happen to have this one, and this is one of my absolute favorite. The 1895 Chilean Mauser. This is the long rifle, full rifle, made in 1895 at the Lowell Berlin Company for Mauser. Later, I think that became DWM. Correct me if I'm wrong, the comments below. Now, this particular rifle is chambered in 7mm Mauser or 7x57 Mauser. It also has a unique distinction of having a Holland and Holland cartridge. Holland cartridge. So impressed by the 7mm Mauser round was Holland and Holland that they actually stole it, I dare say, and renamed it 275 Rigby. And a bunch of African elephant hunters and African hunters in general have sung its praise. Now, I'm not that much of a hunter. For me, I'm a historian. Now, I'm going to give you a brief little review on this here rifle. This particular rifle was made in 1895. It's one of the first 100,000 rifles. And it's an H-series rifle. And again, made in Lowell, Berlin. And this particular weapon I have set up with a white British Army sling, a leather British Army sling, because I'm a reenactor. And I like to portray a particular conflict that almost nobody knows very little about, if they know anything about it at all, if they even heard about it. The Anglo-Boer Wars. Now, a little history lesson here. The Anglo-Boer Wars were fought in, the first one was fought in 1880 to 1881, and it was a stunning victory for the Boer forces. Now, to those of you who do not know who the Boers were Dutch settlers in South Africa. They came there in the 1700s when it was a Dutch colony and then later acquired by the British, and they just moved north. They're highly Calvinistic people. They are now known as Afrikaners in South Africa. They're the white Dutch farmers. Now, they didn't necessarily have to be Dutch, but that was the majority of them were. There were American volunteers, but it was the Boers versus the British. And in the first Anglo-Boer War, the Boers chastised the British Army, completely beat the crap out of it. They didn't win a single victory against the Boers with all their modern technology and whatnot. And back then, the Boers were armed with single-shot Martini Henry rifles, the same rifles that were carried by the British Army at Sendawana and in Rorke's Drifts. Now, fast forward to 1899, the Boer republics are the Transvaal, or the South African Republic, and then there's the Orange Free State. Now, both countries in that time era, purchased massive quantities of 7mm German Mausers with the deposits of gold that were found in South Africa. And basically, the Boer War started more or less because the British wanted the gold fields, the gold and the diamond fields that the Boers had in the Transvaal. Now, anyways, Paul Kruger, President of the Republics, ordered these here rifles. Now, this is not a Boer rifle itself, and if it is, I could only hope, but I doubt it very much. Anyways, history lesson over. This is the 7mm Chilean Army Mauser. It has a 28-inch barrel. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. I haven't measured it. It's sighted out to 2,000 meters with this elevating sight. You pinch the little wings on it and you can raise it and lower it. Cool little feature right here is it's got a little rest, so instead of it just being like this where it gets bounced around, push the sight all the way forward and it locks it. Another cool feature is this is an old Mauser design, so it's got the traditional Mauser action and whatnot, but this one I like because it has the follower where you can load individual rounds and not have to push the follower down. Now, this rifle cocks on closing, and there are two different types of bolt action systems. One is the cock on opening, and the other one is the cock on closing. In my opinion, I like cock on closing because on cock on opening, yeah, you pull the bolt back and it's charged and ready to go, and then you work the whole action. With this rifle, what I like about it is you kind of have to slam it a bit, because as you can see, just pushing it up with my thumb here, it doesn't engage the action. There's a little, it's an early system, but basically there's a little hook that's attached to the trigger here that catches on the bolt down here as you're closing it. And then the tension of the spring, apply the tension, and you're good to go. I like it because, let's say you've got a stubborn round that really doesn't want to do much, slam it home. Now, the trigger on this rifle is pretty good, actually, for almost over 100 years old. And these rifles were actually made with such precision and quality that dry firing, it does not damage it. In fact, I could show you the bolt face to prove it. See, no deformation whatsoever on the bolt face. Now, unlike the Spanish 93s, the bolt here is round. It's got two locking lugs on the front only. It's a straight bolt, and that's your safety right there. Now, here's another feature, and this is what I like about this rifle, is that unlike the 1893, the 95s realized that if the locking lugs failed here in the action, the bolt's gonna blow back in your face. Now, they added this little feature right here. It's a little lip, a little bar of steel, and that, once I put the bolt back in, that acts as a secondary safety feature and keeps the bolt from secured, like a pair of rear locking lugs. All of the locking lug issues were resolved with the 1898 Mauser we know as the Gewehr 98, and later the K98. This is basically the great granddad of the K98. The forecap, the sight, everything's different compared to the K98s, and as well as the Gewehr 98s for that matter. It takes a different style bayonet, the traditional I don't know what to call it, T-section bayonet lug and blade, whilst the Gewehr 98s had that really cool locking lug, long locking lug that was underneath the barrel. Cleaning rod is not full length, actually you have to have an extension for it. But with this rifle, this thing is, this is a tack driver. Up to 600 meters, this thing is one of the most effective rifles in the world, in my opinion. Now, it's a older rifle, it's a long rifle. However, though, for what it is, this is one of the best rifles in the world. Yes, it's made for the Chilean government. Yes, it could have been with the Boers, but this is made in Germany in 1895, when the Germans, before they had gotten douchebaggish, had just the standard of quality like second to none. The quality standard, actually, I should dare say. So most of the original bluing's gone, unfortunately. You could still find a couple little spots where the original bone blue is still there, like on the magazine follower and right here on the top of the bolt release latch. The bolt itself is polished stainless, and it's not stainless steel, but it's polished, it's clean, and I don't know exactly what it's made of, so again, if you know, tell me in the comment below. But my crazy little videos here are just trying to give a brief little tutorial. But anyways, though, again, I have this British Army sling, which is going with the persona of the Boers, where they would pick up virtually whatever they can get their hands on. The Boer Army did not have any standards of equipment, didn't have any standards of munitions. They were unpaid. They saw it was an honor to serve the Republic, and quite frankly, they were very, very protective of it. It goes to show that the legacy of the... Oh, actually, back up, sorry. Unfortunately, the legacy of the Boer War is the concentration camp. The British are the ones who started the concentration camps, and they used it on the Boer civilians, the women, the children, the old. A lot of people died, like 26,000 people or so died in the concentration camps. But when you look at the sheer scale of the conflict itself, the Boers were taking clothes from dead British soldiers. By the end of the conflict in 1902, you would have the majority of Boers still fighting. They were wearing British Army uniforms. Not standard, they didn't have standards or whatnot, they just wore it as clothing. Boots, clothing, equipment, rifles. Unfortunately, the supply of ammunition for this particular rifle dried up by around 1901, so the majority of Boer commandos just unfortunately dropped their rifles off somewhere, or they left them, or they threw them away, or whatnot. I don't know, but they were picking up British Lee Metfords and Lee Enfield rifles, so they were using British Army equipment. They were using, again, virtually whatever they can get their hands on. They had no artillery. They were hit and run tactics on horseback. Most of these men didn't even have proper shoes, let alone proper rifles, so they were just getting to where they could. So that's the persona, and this is my brief little tutorial on the Boer War and my 1895 Chilean Mauser. So, as always, I hope y'all enjoy, and stay frosty.